right, we're live. Hey guys, this is Doug Fletcher, and you're listening to What's the Hazard? We appreciate you. Thanks for tuning in. It is December 17th, Friday, and we are probably doing the last episode for this calendar year. I think next Friday is Christmas Eve. The following Friday then will be New Year's Eve. Obviously, the people here at Hurrdat Media don't work on those days, so this might be it. And so before we get started with my guest, I'd like to just once again say thank you to the people that make this possible, our sponsors, Cheyenne Wohlford with CCS Group, John Falewitch Construction Services, my buddy Jim Cover down at the Nebraska Department of Labor, Onsite Consultation Group, and the Building Omaha team, IBEW and NECA here in Omaha. I am incredibly grateful for your support. Thank you very much. It means a lot to me to be able to do this, provide this information to my colleagues and people in the safety profession. We do have some small business supporters that have been also incredibly generous, and I want to point them out. Kristen Hodge with Hinco, Brent Culver with Wicked OSHA. Back in the very beginning, Steve Polich with Safety Reports, and Lou DeMoro with Medical Enterprises. Everybody has been incredibly generous with their time, with resources, with money, support. Thank you all. We are into our third year, and I think the best is yet to come. So thank you all for that. I sincerely appreciate it. My guest today is a good friend of mine, a colleague, Lee Paulsen. So check this out. So Lee works for one of the most prominent fishing companies in the world. The company is Pure Fishing, but you represent Berkeley, Abu Garcia, all of these incredible fishing companies, all of this tackle. And he lives in a resort community on the lake. I mean, this is a job, right?
This is a job.
Okay, man.
A lot of people love what I get to do. So it's a great company. Out of nowhere, I had no idea that it was so close to what I would call home here in kind of the Omaha, Lincoln area.
Yeah, so you're up in Okoboji, basically, yes. Spirit Lake, Iowa, which is a beautiful community, lakes galore, fishing, obviously. So thank you for being here, man. I mean, you've been traveling all week.
Yep, I have.
And you look tired.
I feel tired, yeah.
No, man, so we'll tell everybody a little bit about your safety journey, how you got into this, and then let's talk about Pure Fishing.
Yeah, kind of been doing this for about a dozen years already.
Yeah.
It seems crazy to think
went fast.
That, and just kind of worked my way up through agriculture, manufacturing, or agriculture was a big stint there in the middle, and really missed the manufacturing world, and that's how I found Pier Fishing, and it's just been a great ride. I'm an outdoorsman myself, and it's just a fun company to be associated with, like all the brands, and a lot of people get jealous. I wear this to a concert, and everyone's like,
right.
Oh, I love what you do.
We love Berkeley. Everybody loves Berkeley. I throw plastic bait all the time, man. That's my favorite. So
yeah, it's just.
Did you bring anybody? Any chance?
I didn't bring any.
Okay.
We can't make it fast enough.
I bet you can't.
You're not high enough on the totem pole.
So that brings us to an interesting point, man. During all this COVID insanity, these last few years, the fishing industry has been booming, which leads to a lot of interesting challenges for a safety professional.
Yeah. So our business has just been nuts with the start of COVID. People are getting outside, people are getting outdoors. It's great for us, but it's been really taxing for workplace safety. Since, early in 2020, we're just, all of a sudden we're just seeing a boom in the amount of sales go through the roof, and all of a sudden we can't hire people fast enough. So we're just have an influx of trying to get people in the door, and now all of a sudden we start going to 11, 12-hour shifts just to get as much product
keep up
made
with
as
demand.
possible. Yeah.
Wow.
It's been very, very challenging. My biggest fear when the shift structure changes that we had gone through, just like this is going to be tough on people. And we're light manufacturing in what we do, but I mean, it has its own hazards associated. We're very high volume, quick pace of what we're doing. So
right.
That really just worried me. In long days, 11, 12-hour day, the fatigue really starts to set in. We went through and, okay, we're going to this direction. So what do we do on the opposite end to try to mitigate those risks as much as possible? So we really we looked at our Ergonomics Program, job rotation. We really invested a lot into our stretching program with Kristen Hodge.
Oh, did you?
Who's
Oh, wonderful.
fantastic.
She is fantastic.
Yes, I really love what she was able to do for us, and the program. It's been fantastic, and if we truly follow that, it's going to make us better. Like I remember when I first got the program from her, I'm sitting in the office doing the stretches by myself, sweating, and people. And at that point in time, I just had like a 7-foot office, so I'm like touching both sides. But I was just like, 5 minutes after I did that, I was like, I feel great.
Really?
I was just like, I feel loose, like I feel I could do so much. So it's a great program. And when I lead training with everybody every week, and I was like, if we do this, you guys will feel better. So
it's incredible.
Try to just enforce it every week. It's just, when you introduce new programs, they are hot off the press and everybody pays attention to them, but we just got to try to sustain that as much as possible. We're constantly refreshing on people to do this because it's going to make you better.
It's interesting. So I remember when you and I spoke, we probably spoke 6, 8, 9 months ago. We speak periodically, but we were talking about the fact that you were planning on extending these shifts. And I think statistically, I'm not a statistician, and I'll be honest with you, I don't really go out and read the literature, but I think as safety professionals, all of us are aware that when you really push people hard, when you extend these shifts, when you're working, maybe 6, 7 days a week, you are confronted with a lot of issues of overuse and fatigue and those kind of things. Loss of focus, perhaps, maybe even attitudinal issues. Now the money is great, but now I'm not really interested in working 7 days a week, whatever. So you were mentioning that you were going to try a number of different things.
Yeah, so like I said, we did the stretching piece. We brought in a chiropractor
nice.
to do some soft tissue exercise with people, preventative care, and we did that for 2 months. We were bringing somebody in for a day a week to just work through people and kind of get those things, like I said, being on your feet, the stress.
So how did that work? The chiropractor would come in 1 day a week?
Yep.
And you could make an appointment, or you could just go stop in, or how did that work?
So we did like 10-minute mini sessions where people could sign up and get in, and just it was just a revolving door, just getting people in, getting them out just as quickly as possible. Because we're a big organization, and you've seen how big our building is. So
absolutely.
it was a bit of an effort to get everybody there. So we just hustled people through as quickly as possible, and it started out, it was fantastic.
Were people interested?
People were interested, and because we'd always talked about it, because there was other people or other organizations locally that had something similar. So we're going to do this, and we got everybody, like I said, signed up, going through. But really, after a few weeks, it started to die off. It was people were really obsessed, like it was fantastic, we're doing this, like we were double booked on appointments because people were making appointments. But it was just funny though, like a lot of people they took it like, I went and did it already, like I don't need to do this every week. Like it's just it really just opened my eyes to the people that we have. They're like, no, I already did it, I don't need to do it again. I was like, it's here for you guys to do it every day or every week. I made that joke with you earlier, but then the people that did show up were the ones that showed up every week, because we had some guys showing up with combs and trying to look good for the chiropractor.
So you had a female chiropractor who was attractive, that
did
well, and not meaning to minimize that, of course, but obviously that generates some interest in some part of the workforce.
Yeah, and it was unique, and it was providing value. But we would have gone forward with it for 6 months, a year, but I mean, it was so hard to get people to fill that slide. And I don't know what it was. It just they did like one and done, and it was great. And people would, like, if nobody else is going to do it, I'll do it. But I want somebody else to take my spot. It was interesting to see that people's behavior around that. Like, I already took advantage, somebody else should. But we worked through that, and we weren't able really to sustain that. I think it provided a little bit of relief for people. But it didn't last. It wasn't sustainable, and we weren't getting the value out of it.
Talk about Kristen's service, the stretch and flex part of this. Was that a pre-shift? So I know that Kristen will develop the programs specifically to the muscular needs of the workforce. It's not just do the same 4 stretches you did before football practice in junior high school. Yeah. It's a little bit more specific.
Yeah, so we found that, because what we were doing two sessions a day, 2 to 4 minute sessions per day. We were doing one at startup and one around the lunch period. Okay. When people came back, and what we found was, just looking at what we were doing and the shift structure that we're working, it was just best to do 5 minutes dedicated throughout at the start of your shift, and then we also try to do like those mini sessions, so like a machine changeover, whatever, walking back, just doing little stretches along your ways, and how important that is. So, yeah, it was fantastic. We developed several leaders that we brought in to lead the stretching, be a stretching coach on the proper way to teach that posture. And really just the big benefit that I saw from it was the explanation of these are why we do the stretches. You know, we talk about the rolled shoulders and that effect that it has on you, and hearing just her talk about, you know, and going out and interviewing the coworkers, like she was like, do you have a lot of neck injuries? I was like, no, we don't have neck injuries, nothing like that. And going and talking to people, like, are you sore right here? You know, when you go home, like, oh yeah, it's just, you know, upper neck and that part, like, I was like, we don't have injuries there, but we know we talk about, you know, the work that we do and your shoulders going in for you and how that just leads to other things, and just looking around and you can see that. And I pay attention to that everywhere that I go now, and just see like how uncomfortable people are, and like said, it makes sense. And how,
and is it primarily from just your head, like pivoting forward or something, looking down at your work or
and
something?
It's just, all the work you do is in front of you. I mean, especially with our line of work, you know, we're working packaging, you know, lines, baits, all that stuff, working on machine spoolers, all that work is in front of you. Even the mechanics, you know, everything's out in front of you. So you just, all of that's just meant to be is bringing everything back into alignment. And it makes sitting in chairs, your posture is better. Just, you know,
sorry, man. I mean, Kristen, I need some help.
Yeah. So yeah, no, it was really great. And but going throughout the year that we had even the last couple of years, so, you know, we went through 2019 was our best year that we'd had on a record. I mean, we went 540 some days without a lost time injury. Recordables was several hundred days. Even the ones that we had were really minimal. Just the best stretch that we'd ever had. Then we get into 2020, we're working long hours. You know, there's so much going on in the world, and we're trying to throw everything that we can at it, just how to be preventative. And like you had said, some attitudes, just not so much. I mean, probably some of it with the work piece and the shift structure that we had, but there's so much outside noise the last couple of years with what's going on. Just we've just seen something just change in a lot of people. It's been tough. So we've had a number of recordables the last couple of years, and nothing overly serious, but a lot of the carpal tunnel, tendonitis, tennis elbow, stuff like that. So we've got an older workforce, you know, that have been doing this 20, 30 years, and, you know, they're on the last leg of their kind of career before they retire, and who had probably already been through a lot. Now we just kind of increased their workload that last leg, and, you know, we started to see bodies breaking down. We also had problems of when we, you know, hiring new people and just a rush to get them to the floor where, you know, we probably weren't spending as much time with the training piece.
Of course. I think that was pretty common, truthfully.
Yep. And we would have people where we brought on some great coworkers to work for us and just want to do a good job. You know, young people that, you know, I'm here to do something, I'm going to be good at it, and probably have gotten themselves into situations that they shouldn't have, where even some supply chain issues where we've had to flow to work, where we moved people between departments just to so that they could have a job and they could get their paycheck. So we move them to a different cell and just kind of like just try to do the best that we can so we can keep them working. And then, you know, something goes wrong with a piece of equipment or whatever it may be, and they're trying to troubleshoot it, and then they get themselves into trouble. Yeah. So stretch and flex, chiropractic, what other kind of things did you try that may or may not have been successful in? Yeah, we did some of this stress. We did some raffles with people. We did things like that. You know, we incentivized the COVID piece with vaccinations. We were doing drawings of $1,000 a pay period for people that were getting vaccinated. Just throwing stuff, which was a huge incentive that the company. So if you got vaccinated within that time period, your name would go into the drawing? Yep. Into the raffle? Yep. So the vaccinated group, we were drawing $1,000 winners. Nice. We were just trying to do all that we could get and to keep people positive, and it was working with some of the people. It was just, it wasn't a complete failure. It just didn't probably reach everybody that we wanted to. Yeah. We've just been navigating through the waters. I think current state where we're at, we've been through this for, 18 months now. We're starting to catch a little bit of a stride now. I just think like we've gotten through we lost some good people along the way, just with things with it was the, outside of the world, the stresses and everything. But I mean, it's been tough, but we're hitting a little bit of a stride now. It feels like where we're getting accustomed to the work structure, the shift structure. Are we still working those extended hours? We're still slowed down from what it was from the peak. We're still working extended hours for the most part. What would a typical week be at this point? Right now, we're working 48 hours one week. They're working 10-hour days Monday through Thursday, then an 8-hour day on Friday. And then we're doing an AB schedule where every other Friday they get off. So they're doing a 40, a 48.
Okay.
But we also allow people to volunteer for overtime.
So they can if
they can. Yep.
Okay. But that's not as brutal as some. I mean, I know places where they're working 6-10s.
Yep.
I mean, which just seems. I mean, not only in the work environment, that added stress of just being there, but the recovery time is so lessened. I mean, when you are out of the workplace, you don't have as much time to recover physically or your hearing or whatever it is that's been under stress.
Yep.
That's a big challenge.
And we, like I said, in that last year and a half, we've been able to staff an entire weekend shift. Or, I mean, maybe not fully staffed, but we've been able to bring people on to work a weekend shift, and it goes on and off. So that's been able to offset some of the things as well, was just building up that staffing. Obviously, you have to hire more leadership to get them to run those shifts, a beefed up third shift, the weekend shift. So it's gotten better. And one of the really good things that that kind of helped limit the amount of exposures. We're really good at being able to move people around. Like, there's so much different jobs that we do where if people are starting to get a little burnout on things, or they're starting to, getting some aches and pains, we can still put them in highly productive work cells that maybe aren't as high, high demand as far as, high risk as far as, fatigue and stress on the body. Yeah. So you've seen our facility. We have the sit-stand options of working on packaging lines. We have a lot of lines where you can work at your own pace, where you don't have to keep up with what's coming down the conveyor belt. So that's been a really saving grace, because we've been able to rotate people into those cells, which are still a great value. And
probably physically and mentally.
Yeah, exactly, where they can even get a break from people. They can go off and be on their own and do some things. And it's...
I like to work in isolation, now that you mention it. I mean, I'm okay with this.
Yeah,
but sometimes you do need a little break from just the noise or just the presence of so many people around you.
Yeah,
I think that's true.
And the team that I work with is really good too about listening to the coworkers. We talk about tools and resources, being those eyes and ears to, when people needs to get a break from, being on a molder or whatever it may be, so we can get them off, whether it's mental, if it's physical, whatever it may be, and give them a day or two break, just so they can kind of reconfigure and get ready to go back. And, all things need time. All stresses need a little time. And,
absolutely.
It's not that big a deal once you've had some time to sit and think about everything.
Right.
So, it's been a rough couple of years, but we're starting to get into a stride. And I think people just this is, I hate saying this, but this is the new normal, right?
Yeah, to some degree. And I'm sure that they recognize and appreciate the effort that's being made for the most part. They know that you as an employer recognize this increased stress level and that you're trying to do things to address it, to improve working conditions. I would imagine most employees appreciate that. We've got some employees that we have a really hard time with, period, regardless of what we do to try to make their lives better. Yeah. We just don't always appreciate it, but I'll bet the majority of your workforce gets it.
Yeah, and even with those ones that you said that may have a negative aspect, always, we've even brought some of those in, well, what would you do if you were in our shoes? We're very humble in that. If you have a better idea than what you're doing, by all means, please share. Nice. That's weird. There's no pride or anything like that. And that's how I carry myself. I have no pride. Right. Somebody can do it great, and I can take that, and we can do it the same way. Absolutely. So
this is somewhat uncharted territory. So let's put our heads together.
Yep. And like I said, everyone's well, you guys are doing really the best that you guys can do. I don't really know what else we can do. Yeah. And we've done really, really great in our community. I mean, the COVID piece, we're, even if there's incidents as a whole, we're really killing it from a positive standpoint. We're doing a really good job. I'm really proud of it. The leadership team's really proud of it.
Good.
We've kind of taken a high standard for our local community up there in Spirit Lake.
Nice. Excellent, man. This is great stuff. And I think there are a lot of companies that are struggling with this extended work shift issue. Maybe they're significantly busier because of COVID or just whatever the reason, the economy in general. And there are a lot of issues that need to be addressed. I've always appreciated the level of creativity that you have used to try to address these things. Sounds like you found some things that worked. And, it's always good to share things that don't work quite as well as we had hoped. That's how we learn as well. So thanks, man. We're going to be back for one more episode. So thank you guys for listening or watching. We appreciate it. As you noticed, I brought in the eye candy for today. So some of you are watching on YouTube. If you're listening and have not been to the YouTube channel yet, it's What's the Hazard podcast. Just go search it out. It probably doesn't pop up with the Joe Rogan podcast yet, but after this one, I think it will. So thanks, everybody. Have a great weekend and have wonderful, safe holidays, and we'll talk to you soon. Later.